Type 1 and 2 doesn't really matter in the core context of the game. In the actual game, the characters and the entire world will still refer to you as if you picked a male or a female, whether certain genders, or not genders, but quests would be delivered to you. Depending on those genders, they would be delivered to you as if you picked male or female. So by all accounts, this was nothing more than a cosmetic selector that was designed, I guess, to make the language appropriate with modern times, okay? And that was pretty much like kind of the end of it. Now, when I see body type 1 and body type 2, personally, it kind of is a little bit confusing to me. Generally speaking, the reason so is the first time I've ever seen this, it is in a game like Elden Ring when I was making my character. And honestly, I'm just so used to seeing like a male or a female archetype body that I have to actually look between the option of 1 and 2 to see what is the male body and what is the female body, okay? That's really where it gets confusing to me. But on a real level, this takes, however amount of time it may take for a character creator to do. For many people, they can be making an hour-long character creation experience where they're putting together the most ugliest in character. For me, like most people, since I played this game in first person, or at least just me, I'll speak for myself, I usually just skip past all of this, decide what my character's class and abilities are, more importantly, then I decide what they look like, since it's a first-person game. I think anytime I played games like even most FromSoft games, or specifically Cyberpunk 2077, like I said earlier, I just usually pick the default-looking character and move alongside, okay? I don't really go into the whole character creation shit that much, I just focus mostly on the abilities. But again, that's just me. To go back to it, this was a male-female body type, and the language was something that was modded to be different. Now, in a real talk segment over here, I personally don't understand why I would ever want to install this mod. Just on a personal level, body type 1 and 2, or male or female, again, just the use of the modern body type 1 and 2 language feels kind of arbitrary in that sense, because it is just male and female. Like, I guess if you're kind of shying away from gendered language, or trying to make games all the way inclusive, I think there's probably better ways to handle it, especially in a 20-year-old remake. But this mod being removed really was the reason why Streisand affected, right? Like, all of a sudden, you had just people constantly yelling about, hey, this is censorship, this is not ideological neutrality on Nexus Mod, which is one of the largest haven for mods out there. And realistically, that's where the conversation jumped up to. Now again, me personally, I think most gamers probably wouldn't even bother to install this mod because you get past this whole character creator and you never see it again. But again, this mod wasn't something that was out there promoting violence or promoting hatred or promoting anything. It was people changing language back at, if you looked at the files for what the files are themselves, it's an incredibly harmless, innocuous mod. And you don't really have to install it if you don't agree with it either, right? If somehow you don't agree with the body type 1 and 2 language, right? Like, you're just ideologically not there and you're installing this mod, it's a far different mod than one that, I saw this, right, the way the controversy kind of treated this, it almost felt like people were looking at this as like, the next big crazy neo-Nazi, fucking hunt the LGBTQ mod or something, right? It was again, cosmetic swap on the character creator, and it got ballooned up through all games journalism into something that, involves censorship and all this other stuff that ultimately becomes a far bigger story and a far bigger topic of discussion. But yeah, I guess it achieved what it wanted to. It really twisted the nipples of, everyone talking, to the point that we're here today discussing the largest modding platform in the world. So apparently, this wasn't even the only mod that was removed. Based on some discussion from what appeared to be actual Chinese modders, even the Chinese translation of Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion had to apparently been allegedly banned, and I can't entirely confirm this myself because I haven't really seen much of this in terms of evidentiary proof. I've seen it being shared around through these screenshots, but the idea is that they actually ended up removing it because key values of gender, which was actually in the database itself, from the original 06 version of the game were male-female, and of course this was not something that was flying well with, again, it appeared to be the moderation of Nexus. So yeah, obviously, if this is true, and I don't know the Chinese language because I don't really speak Chinese, but as somebody that speaks Hindi, मुझे पता है gendered language के बारे में क्या होता है. अगर मैं औरतों से बात कर रहा हूँ तो मैं उनसे दूसरे अल्फाज से इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूँ, और अगर मैं आदमियों से बात कर रहा हूँ तो थोड़े से अलग अल्फाज हो रहे होते हैं. Like, there are gendered languages and differences. If you didn't understand what I said, alright, generally speaking, I just wanted to flex a little bit of my bilingualness, but speaking gendered languages and knowing things that, the way that you pronounce certain words or the way that certain genders are mentioned. English as a language is again very different to other languages, specifically gendered languages that I would say like Spanish, like Hindi, like a lot of these South Asian languages, not just Hindi, but obviously Chinese at this point probably would also be dragged into it as well too, given just the brief research that I've done here. So yeah, this was ultimately a big sort of, hoopla about just, again, body type 1, body type 2 being replaced to male-female through a mod. Now, on the surface, I myself wouldn't really care to do this mod myself. Like, I would have to go through effort to just modify an experience and part of a game that I would only see for a fraction of a second at most. It does not warrant that much effort. But if somebody wants to go through that, I personally don't understand why. But on the surface and the file as a whole, I don't see what it's doing is necessarily destructive or dangerous, right? This kind of a mod doesn't promote violence. It doesn't promote any harm. It's just a mod that exists for people that want to make their game, they want to change the wording of something in there. You may not agree with it, but generally speaking, this mod wasn't necessarily designed to, escalate some level of violence, so to speak, all right? And by this mod being removed, obviously, regardless of where your stances are ideologically, it is in some ways actual censorship. And for one of the premier modding platforms like Nexus to do this, it's a very dangerous slope to go down. Now, it's not the first time Nexus has ever done this. Obviously, if you remember back when there was Starfield, another Bethesda game, the introduction character creation screen had a, pronoun selector. So you could pick he, him, she, her, they, them, and somebody made a mod where they actually fucked it up, where if they removed the pronoun selector, everyone in the game was effectively referring to the created character as a they, them pronoun person. So instead of getting rid of the pronouns, they just severely botched the mod right there. But then there were other mods that Nexus removed as well, like for instance, if you ever played Spider-Man, you'll probably notice that at certain parts of the map in Manhattan, there are pride flags. And those when somebody had made a mod to remove them, Nexus jumped in and removed that modder from modding out pride flags from their game. And again, I have to explain, I don't understand why somebody would go through that effort. I wouldn't do it myself. Again, these are not things that bother me to the insane point, in my personal opinion, where I'm going to be downloading a mod from the internet, patching it in, and then upkeeping it as that game is constantly updated, okay? Again, even when looking at this, it's also funny too when actual companies will remove those pride flags and remove any LGBT references when it comes down to selling the game in regions like Saudi Arabia, which, again, it shows me how, careless these companies are when it comes to the values they preach, right? Like, obviously, I believe every gay person, every trans person, every person has a right to exist, okay? Why is it okay to spread their existence in our side of the world and not fight for it, or at least advocate for it, in any other place you're releasing the game? Obviously, money is more important. Obviously, your values are more aligned there. But yeah, it is what it is. But generally speaking, this was not the only set of mods that Nexus was getting rid of, okay? This was a history of modifications that Nexus would remove. There were certain mods like Marvel Rivals where they would remove a mod that depicted the heads of characters as specific US presidents. And of course, they wanted to, again, remove it on that front because Nexus was obviously impartial, or they were claiming to be impartial from the US political machine. Which, if that was really the case, right, if they were ideologically free, I don't think they would really need to go about and remove mods like this. So yeah, when the account got banned, one of the posts that came out from Nexus was right here on their bot. The account that posted that mod got banned because they were posting an intentionally antagonistic mod with intention to evade the rules. The mod altered the body types in the remake from 1 to 2 to male and female. While the modification itself is not inherently a problem, the intention of the author is the problem. When the user reported that they had archived the mod on a website dedicated to archiving TOS-breaking content on Nexus mods and other modding websites with a particular focus on bigotry, the author replied, "Awesome, thanks for picking up on my intentions, 07. From our file submission guidelines, this is one of the guidelines they had, files that remove identity-inducing, including pronouns from a game that has been intentionally put in place by a game developer. And I assume a lot of this, like, extreme verboseness came from, like, Starfield and previous games that had the stuff modded out. I think games like Baldur's Gate 3 were even targeted specifically because they had a very in-depth character creator that could go far more in-depth than whatever we're seeing with Bethesda. Now, in amongst all this, you might be like, what other mod sites exist? Now, to be honest with you, some of the mod sites that I love, personally, are mod sites like ModDB. Now, I've been modding for a long time. Back in the day when we were getting mods, we were getting them from all different types of online communities. ModDB is probably the place where I've downloaded so many of the goofiest, like, Grand Theft Auto mods that I've shown on my channel, like, entire, like, total re-releases. I would consider this site to be, like, a hands-down million times better than whatever you're seeing in Nexus mods, just because, like, the actual kind of mods that I want, which are actually, like, game-modifying mods, versus, again, your standard Gunnar mod, is all present over here. Not to say there's anything wrong with the Gunnar mod, clearly there's a market for it, and that kind of a market was a market like DEG mods, for instance, where other mod sites started to form up because they wanted to release, a lot of these Nexus banned mods in, free, complete ownership right over here. And again, when you go to like sites like DEG mods, some of the most popular mods they kind of start off by showcasing are again mods where, again, they're replacing those body type languages where instead of, again, Elden Ring, great example, they wanted to change body type A and B to male and female. And again, the further you go down into it, you'll find other things like New Newtonian New York, where a mod that replaces all the in-game's LGBT flags with the US flag in Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. And again, these are all mods that have effectively been stored, that have been removed from a lot of the big places like Nexus because of, again, the ideology and the moderation that jumped in to remove this. It's the perfect example of like what a Streisand effect really is. Like, according to DEG mods, they're looking at this and they're going, Type 1 and Type 2 Nexus mods. This mod goes against my views, but I will allow it. This mod goes against my views. Lock thread, delete, ban, ban, ban. I will just say it, broke a site rule. And again, that's really the entire mention here. It's like, obviously, if they appear to be censoring mods, sure. And you'll go to sites like Based Mods, for instance, which, again, will have mods stored onto their websites that, again, are banned from a lot of these major places. And if you look at the top mods, or at least the most recent mods, you'll find your body type mod, you'll find Hetero Henry, you'll find a lighter skin version of Yasuke, the brain rot removal. I think it's pretty understandable, like, what kind of mods end up on a lot of these based or free mod websites, right? Like, if I go to Alan Wake 2, I wonder... It's literally just like a white version of like the black character. They just like replaced it. A small test mod that changes Saga Anderson to have white skin, blonde highlights, and blue-gray eyes. So it's just literally race swapping the entire character, dude. No females out of Battlefield 5? You guys are still actually playing Battlefield 5? Come on now. Come on. The nerfed Jews and the DEI remover. Oh boy. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that I think most gamers are probably going to look at things like nerfed Jews and a lot of these mods and these lists and probably not go through the effort of installing them or really not shed a tear if they do get removed from like mainstream websites. But yes, obviously when you have over-moderation on your website, especially for mods where, again, I would say there's a bit of a difference between like nerf Jews and body type 1 to like, male and female, right? When you have the over-moderation, obviously that's what Nexus is worried about. You gotta have a pretty relatively impartial website. And again, there's a fine line, a fine balance between it, and it's one thing where I feel like Nexus is a little bit threatened going forward, and let's read further into their responses. Now, of course, in amongst all this controversy, ladies and gentlemen, Nexus had gotten so much of it that they decided, yeah, I guess we'll bring the mod back. So yeah, the actual mod is back, Body Type Selector, and according to the fellows over at Nexus Mods, the mod has been and likely will continue to be a source of controversy within the community. I mean, in all honesty, right? Like, This was a pretty small little inconsequential mod that honestly picked up steam because every gaming journalist wanted to talk about it. Everyone wanted to turn it into a big story. I think at some point I saw a Vice article about it. Like, is Oblivion Remastered too woke? Right-wing gamers are trying to mod out this feature. Like, the moment you try to actually have websites like this, the moment you try to bring this stuff off, again, it's like nobody would have heard about it if it wasn't for every big publication, every creator talking about it. But yeah, to give you an idea, they said that the mod was taken down not because of its content, but it was removed because of the uploader's behavior. In the comments, the uploader expressed an intent to incite drama and endorse an external site explicitly designed to host inflammatory content. This kind of behavior directly violates our community standards. We recognize that mods like this can bring sensitive discussion around gender and identity to the forefront. While these are important conversations, our platform exists to support creative expression in modding, not to serve as a battleground for broader cultural and political debates. Look, at the end of it, you kind of lose your right to kind of say that this is about just, the broader, like, it was ideological that you took down the mod. Let's be honest here, okay? And now, let's say that this person did have a claim against you, right? Like, let's say that this person was here to incite drama. You really did give them an out by just effectively removing a mod that outright literally did something very small and inconsequential. Like, at one point, people want to tell you that this is a meaningless mod and it should be removed, and again, these weren't massive changes to be had. And on the other hand, they really are vehemently trying to remove this mod from existence to the point that it's now preserved forever. Not that it's some crazy intensive a mod anyways, but the actual argument, the actual, conversation surrounding it really just blew up because of how Nexus operated. And do I think that Nexus turned this around because they actually believe in free expression? No, I think honestly the only reason Nexus turned this around was because Nexus feels like if all of a sudden their website is going to have more and more of these moderation incidents, and again, to be honest, to me, it's not that big of a deal, right? Like, I wouldn't personally install this mod, I wouldn't go through my way of doing it. But I also don't necessarily see something equivalent to, again, a mod that perpetrates, an actual, racism, transphobia, homophobia, anything of that nature, okay? If somebody is removing content from a video game or modifying it on their own game data, on their own files, right? I really don't see something if they were just constantly throwing in fucking swastikas all over the world of Cyrodiil, okay, and promoting crazy conspiracy theories and crazy hatred and bigotry through it, right? But replacing, again, just body type 1 and 2 to male and female honestly wasn't that big of a deal to begin with. It wouldn't be something that I would do, but it shouldn't have been at this point where everyone had this hoopla, and now we're suddenly talking about it because it's this great discussion of what is censorship. There was censorship that happened from Nexus's point. And the greater overarching story here is if censorship keeps occurring, at Nexus, and honestly it's really up to the entire board of people, the moderators, to decide what they allow on the site versus what they don't, it's going to threaten the, again, prominence of Nexus mods, and people might just be going to other websites, maybe to based mod sites, or maybe to ModDB, or maybe to other mod websites or forums or smaller communities like they used to be, just if it means distributing their mods without having people occasionally jumping in and removing it on their own discretion, right? It's just one of those things. I really feel like Nexus felt like their dominance was a little threatened, alright, just because of how bad discourse like this can get, and that's never good to have. But yeah, honestly, the Nexus controversy was, in my opinion, it wasn't really all that crazy, but I did learn a lot about body type 1 and body type 2 discourse that I probably could have done without. Probably could have spent that time playing Expedition 33, great JRPG. If you haven't played it, give it a try. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. What a shit show. I am out.
Hey guys, I just found an amazing digital marketing expert on Fiverr.
The company had its most effective campaign yet. The team continues hiring top-rated experts to this day. And Jerry? Well, he wondered if his reaction was a bit much. It definitely was. Hire a freelancer today and start your own success story.
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and a few days ago I made a video about Roblox and, well, how they're not exactly the most friendly organization when it comes to, I would say, children's safety, okay, which is a pretty important thing on the internet, and the fact that Roblox alongside Discord are now being looked at by the government for what appears to be some pretty blatant abuses, allegedly, of actually letting children roam pretty unfettered on these platforms. Now, of course, for anybody that doesn't know Roblox, you can go to Roblox.com, go and put in your birthday, any day you wanted, really. Okay, you can be a minor, you can be an adult, I don't really care. Throw in a username, throw in a password, pick one of your genders, optional by the way, and just sign right up. And as long as you have any supported platform, whether it be on your mobile devices, whether it be on your consoles, whether it be on your computer right here, anything that basically, just has an actual piece of silicon inside it and runs electricity, you can pretty much play Roblox on. And, yeah, there's a lot of games underneath it. Now, before we jump into this, I don't want to say that Roblox is entirely... I don't want to say that Roblox has no purpose. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens. For instance, if I want to play games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare without downloading 300 gigabytes to my system, okay, I can just play it underneath Roblox, okay? A very minuscule fraction of the download, and again, the same, if not, I would say, better gameplay in most cases. You want to play some Battlefield? It's all within Roblox. You want to play some actual fun-looking games? Roblox has them. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of cool communities, both good and bad, underneath Roblox. Alright? I've covered a few of them myself. Like, I've looked at weird poop cults on the platform 2 years ago. But this isn't about that. This is more about Roblox and some of their most blatantly dumb actions as of recently. Now, when it comes to Roblox and some of the weird content on there, obviously there are some games that you'll probably find sitting around on TikTok if you want to get footage of them. So this clip from 2023, just one clip that I found, had one user effectively going around playing the role of a police officer, shooting up what appears to be, again, an actual, place of learning, and an educational place, so to speak. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to show you much of this footage on the internet, just because it's definitely something that would be kind of playing loosey-goosey with the YouTube terms of service, okay? Again, I don't want to get age-restricted covering this kind of stuff that usually kills any video, but to give you an idea of what the comments are seeing over here, obviously somebody throws in American Simulator, so you could probably figure out the joke here, you know what I mean? Alright? Nashville School District Roleplay. Blood made a new Ulvad? Yeah, you can figure out the joke. Okay? You can figure out what's being displayed on the screen. Now, I'm not going to say these videos are hyper viral, okay? Some of them literally have likes in the double digits, but the point of this was to show you that in amongst all of the stuff on Roblox, this kind of content pretty much still remains relatively unfettered and accessible for a lot of children watching, okay? A lot of kids can go into entire combat experiences on Roblox that would have maps that would be super controversial to M-rated games, like Ready or Not, which I played. Games that have schools and universities in them. Games that received a lot of controversy for that. It seems like Roblox not only is geared towards children, but lets some of the wilder stuff still exist amongst these children to pick up and play, right? Again, I wouldn't really have an issue with this if Roblox wasn't a game built for the kiddies. Now, obviously, there's a problem with Roblox's adult community intermingling with the minor community. And it's not wholesome, it's not cute, it's not people trying to teach the, young children cool things, alright? This is a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where unfortunately the adults on Roblox, some of them at least, have been trying to kidnap 10-year-olds. Now, this might be a shock to some people, right? Like, you might be like, whoa, what's going on here? Now, when I was out for this weekend in California, surprisingly, the same state this actually happened in, I was blown away when I kind of read this, but I wasn't super surprised given how wild shit gets on the internet. So one individual, Matthew Naval, was arrested on Sunday for kidnapping and the unlawful conduct with a minor. So according to this news release from Kern County, the actual sheriff's office, now Kern County is, the center of it is Bakersfield, and the closest I've ever probably been here might be Victorville, just because it's on the way over to, like, Vegas, right? Or maybe the closest I've been is probably Barstow. So Bakersfield, which for anybody that doesn't know what Bakersfield is, I have referred to it playfully by my significant other, who is a California native, as the Buffalo of California state, okay? Buffalo being a prominent city in New York. Obviously, it's that kind of a comparison, okay? It's not exactly awesome. I think EDP was stung here for crying out loud, so there's something about Bakersfield. I wouldn't say there's something about California, there's just something about Bakersfield or Kern County. Anyways, let's get back to it. So yeah, the sheriff's office basically said that in here, right, a 10-year-old missing juvenile was basically dropped in here. The actual deputies had received information from friends that indicated the possibility that this juvenile who was missing could have been kidnapped. And obviously at this point, law enforcement agencies are like, whoa, we got to jump in. So here at this point, they said that the apparent, juvenile was communicating with a 27-year-old adult, before somebody says, oh, maybe they're just stunted, or, no, they're very much a fucking adult at this point, okay? Via social media, and they were believed to have been in the area of Elk Grove, California. It's suspected that the victim was communicating with Naval through Roblox and Discord, leading to their abduction. So obviously, it's great that California police came in and busted the guy. It's not shocking to me how this happened. So for anybody that hasn't picked up what I'm putting down or doesn't know how this goes, let me flowchart it for you. This guy makes an account on Roblox, right? Basically, creates an account, acting like a kid, I guess, or whatever. Somebody who is kid-friendly, I would say. Somebody who kids would probably interact with. They jump into a lot of the most popular Roblox games for children, which if you have kids in your family, you probably bought Robux at some point in your life as a gift. You probably know a kid that's played Roblox. I know. My aunt's kid, the youngest one at least, in front of my eyes, played Roblox Bed Wars on an iPad. So I'm not, immune to seeing Roblox, alright, played by people outside our scope. But generally speaking, this scumbag jumps into Roblox, acts like a kid, joins into the same kid-friendly games, and then, of course, starts interacting with those kids. Now, because Roblox is a platform that does also have some level of, child safety, what these sickos do is they go to these kids and they're like, hey, buddy, you want to go to my cool Discord server, right? You want to jump into this? Then give them a little Discord link, I guess, or try to pass it off in some way to beat whatever filters are available. The kid is like, wow, that's really cool. Let me connect to this Discord server. There might be a little peppering of, hey, kid, let me give you some Robux, okay? Let me give you some candy. Back when I was a kid, it used to be the fucking white van. But let me tell you, that white van don't give free candy. I fell for it a few times. It doesn't work that way. Anyways, his kid connects down into it. He goes to the Discord server, and then this whole situation goes off platform, and we're just lucky that this kidnapping story actually ended up good because the kid was saved. But now you gotta ask yourself the question, with the volume of this shit happening, how many children, unfortunately, don't get rescued by a sheriff's office or law enforcement or the feds, right? How much of this stuff goes on before it's taken care of? And it's the reason why you have entire states now probing Discord and Roblox, because it really seems like they're not doing enough to stop this. So at this moment in time, a friend of the channel, a good content creator known as RubenSim, actually enters into the mix. Now, for anybody that doesn't know RubenSim is a popular YouTuber, 1.28 million subscribers, and he's basically been the man that has effectively been on Roblox's shit list, okay? If there was ever a YouTuber that Roblox would be committing fucking sacrifices to in their deep dark offices, it would be this guy. Because let me tell you something, okay, when you are him and you are challenging one of the largest tech companies in Silicon Valley, it ain't easy. It isn't easy particularly because RubenSim actually was somebody that was taken to court and ended up having to pay a judgment in the favor of Roblox in all of this. Now, I made a video about this probably 3 years ago, and it was pretty sad in a lot of cases because the more and more you watch this video, the more and more you read Roblox's case, they basically targeted him on ban evasion and abusing the terms of services for Roblox, which I guess they probably were able to convince a judge. It really seemed like it was that way. And for as controversial as RubenSim is in regards to the furry community and being edgy, I would say that the good RubenSim has done greatly outweighs a lot of the bad that I guess he's ever done in this situation too. And one of the good things that Ruben Sim did in all of this was Row Cleaner. Now, Row Cleaner is a Discord bot that targets, again, the ability. It's basically a tool that Roblox content creators, Roblox, child-friendly servers use to protect their, communities from sickos. So the idea of this bot is it gives you the ability to ban members of NSFW Roblox Discord servers from any server you add it to. So let me give you the play-by-play, right? Let's say that you're on Discord, right? Let's say that, somebody who is in a Discord NSFW Roblox server, right? Which there's plenty of them out there. What this bot will do is if you are in any of these known NSFW servers, you just don't get to join any Roblox server where, children aren't wanted to be protected or where this bot is present, which I don't have any issue with. I think if you have an issue with a bot like this, you are actually the problem. I don't think that adults who are interacting with NSFW anything have a right to interact with a minor on the internet, okay? It just is simple, all right? I don't understand why this is a complicated topic. Like, bro, if you're gonna be involved with NSFW anything, okay, gooning, whatever the fuck it may be, probably shouldn't be talking with children on the internet, okay? It's just a recipe for disaster. But anyways, Row Cleaner is actually a bot that was at the time in 17,000 servers and tracking 300,000 players. And it was trusted by top games like Combat Warriors, fun name for a kid's game, Toilet Tower Defense, State of Anarchy, Deadline. And of course, it was supported by big YouTubers like Sharkblock, Studs, Creekcraft, so on and so forth. Even development studios was actually using Row Cleaner to make sure that people were removed, right? So generally speaking, you go to your server, you drop this bot in, give it that, role, give it the permissions required, and boom, all the gooners that jump into your server are removed. And so it's an actual bot that kept children safe. It didn't target anybody in specific, it just removed you if you were engaged with NSFW stuff at all. So what happened? Well, Discord decided to jump in and remove this bot for no reason. Discord is focused on maintaining a safe and secure... you read dog shit like this. It's like, the biggest legal response, like the biggest kick in the dick. You want to promote safe and secure environment? Why are you getting rid of the child protection bot, dude? What the could you be doing possibly? Why would this action be focused on maintaining a safe and secure environment? So anyways, they received user reports regarding your application. So I guess a bunch of sickos were like, yeah, we find this to be, we don't like this magnifying glass being put, we don't like the Eye of Sauron looking at us, okay? Conducted an investigation based on our review. So based on, again, they actually, when I read this shit, I immediately do not give charity. I think that a human being looked at this, they looked at what this program did, and they said your application was disabled for violating their developer policy. So what points were being violated? Do not use API data to profile Discord users, their identities, or their relationships with other users to discriminate against anyone based on protected characteristics. So what are protected characteristics? I really feel like before we continue this rabbit hole of hell, we should look at what a protected characteristic is. Because joining a goon server is not a protected characteristic. So okay, their protected characteristics involve age, caste, color, disability, ethnicity, family responsibilities, gender identity, housing status, national origin, race, refugee or immigration status, religious affiliation, serious illness, sex, sexual orientation, socioeconomic class and status, source of income, status as a victim of domestic violence, sexual violence, or stalking, and a weight and size. So I guess they're really trying to effectively cover everything, but nowhere inside here is this pointing out like, hey, are you involved in an NSFW server? If that is what the bot is targeting, I don't see how it falls under any of those protected characteristics. So again, what they said over here was, this was, I guess, targeting their relationships with other users, and do not use the APIs in any way to violate or to enable or promote others to violate the Discord community guidelines. Prohibited behaviors and activities include, but are not limited to, those that enable, promote, or organize any type of on or off-platform harassment. Now, again, if the bot is just checking for your relationships there's no reason why people should be against an NSFW gooning role. If there is an adult interacting with other adults on Roblox gooning stuff, I might think it's weird, but it's not illegal, it's not wrong, nobody should be harassed for that. But I also think it's equally okay if an adult who is engaging in that behavior is removed from servers where children are present. This is not a shocking concept. But yes, according to guys like Rubinsim, and this is where I'm in super agreement with, is that there are actual blatant Roblox sex games that are available. These have been documented by investigators. Just connecting to Roblox, you can find some really crazy shit. Being in a Roblox porn server is a protected characteristic, and we're not allowed to give owners of kid-friendly servers a tool to ban these people. Again, this was a good tool designed to protect children on these online platforms, right? On these servers. Game developers used it, companies used it, content creators used it. This was a good tool to have, and it did a good job protecting children. It was a net positive. Now, I don't want this to sound deep-throaty. There were controversies, obviously, with Row Cleaner. You could talk about, possible issues with maybe things like data collection, like if you use a bot like this, you could be flagged. That can put you into an entire list. That'll prevent you from getting into games in the future. I'm sure that there were people that were flagged for joining a community, an NSFW or a condo community, as I guess some of the Roblox type of people would say, I don't know, like 3-4 years ago, for instance. And maybe you're not part of those communities right now, and you might be wondering, why am I getting removed? And yeah, you could even argue that there might be a ethical implication regarding things like profiling there. But look, when it comes down to it, I think it's a symptom of a much larger problem. If people in the community need to develop tools, develop programs that are, designed to protect children from, again, this intermingling community of adults and minors, which it is problematic, right? Like, again, we've had cases where literal kidnappings were done over Roblox and transitioning communications to Discord. The fact that the community has to come together to develop third-party solutions, when really it shouldn't have even come to this point. What should happen, first and foremost, is Roblox and Discord should be putting in their utmost effort to prevent this intermingling from occurring in the first place. And it really feels like it's gonna need a million pieces of bad news to come out before Roblox and Discord, actually do anything. And the thing about Discord, for instance, too, is right. It'll take governments to subpoena and investigate you before things that should have been done, I would say, years ago actually happen. This is not the first, and it will not be the last case of these hyper-popular platforms being used for nefarious purposes by nefarious individuals. It's just a big problem. The fact that this plugin existed is just a sign that Roblox should have done, or Discord in this case, should have done a million times more than what they're currently doing. I think that's the important part to see over here. Obviously, you can't say that what Rubinsim is doing isn't without any form of fault. You can't, not question the individual. You can't not question Row Cleaner. There are valid criticisms. But I think you also have to ask yourself why third-party moderation needs to be a thing, and why it's this prevalent, where tens upon tens of thousands of people had to be banned, or at least cataloged, before Discord jumped in and removed this bot, okay? And they might have a legitimate claim to it, sure, I guess. They can have a legitimate claim that a bot is profiling their users, but again, what are Roblox and Discord doing at this point, where this kind of stuff was even made in the first place? For Roblox to jump in and remove this for whatever reason is insanity. And it's not just Rubinsim who talks about this, it's channels like Not Text to Speech. There's a lot of people that have talked about how bad Roblox's online moderation is, right? And the thing is, Discord, literally wasn't even involved in this, but it seems like when Discord jumps in to stop this kind of a bot, it almost, again, it's hard to not look at some level of relationship with each other, right? It's weird when a company like this does it. Discord has a lot of problems with child safety, but when they're specifically looking at a bot like this and getting rid of a net positive, it makes you really wonder how much platforms like this truly give a shit about the actual children that are present, right? So yeah, Discord is without a doubt one of the stupidest decisions that I've actually ever seen made by their platform. And the fact that this isn't even the beginning of it. Literally a couple days ago, it feels like the wind is blowing against a lot of these companies. Like for Roblox in specific, there are entire groups now that have started to show up. This is an actual ADL article where again they started to talk about a group known as AS, which is a new company that is in Roblox, one known as Active Shooter Studios. Now, obviously, their logo is a Tech-9 SMG, and you don't have to be an expert to really, equate this to, them being Columbiners. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what a Columbiner is, these are people that are obsessed with true crime culture and specifically, the school shooting side of things. Now, when you have an online Roblox group that is in bed, or at least aligning with that kind of stuff, it might start with dark memes. It might start with fan fiction that glorifies, again, killers, according to what the ADL would say. And me personally, I wouldn't have an issue with games like this freely being distributed, because if an adult is playing something like this, it's not illegal. But when you're intertwining this with a child platform, I mean, that is always the weirdest part about it too, right? And again, these are constant issues that Roblox has been going through over the years. It's not like this happened 10 years ago and we're relitigating it. This is still actually happening on the platform. And that's an issue, okay? When Discord and Roblox are perceivably taking steps to attack net positive solutions and still let this kind of stuff flow away is insane. Roblox should absolutely be fucking investigated. And Roblox should, and they already are. They're getting subpoenaed for crying out loud. They should be looked into for letting this stuff fly as long as it has been. But ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.
Grainger knows that if you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.